Welcome back to the table for a very special character reveal for Marvel Dice Throne X-Men. We've got none other than Wolverine and Psylocke, the first two characters that have been revealed and announced for the game. And we're going to not beat around the bush. We're going to dig right into these characters and
let's do it.
At least give you an idea of some of what's going on with them in a little bit more detail with their abilities, some of their cards, and kind of their overall tactics.
Yeah, and we've been able to play these characters a couple times against each other, so we've been able to kind of just actually dive in and see how these characters work. So I'm going to talk about Wolverine. He's who I have here in front of me. And Wolverine is powered kind of by two things. His charming personality is not one of them. Maybe the grumpiest of all X-Men. But if you know Wolverine, you know that he has a healing factor and he has his berserker rage. And those two things are present throughout all of Wolverine's build. In fact, I think he may be the first character that's got this much healing.
Yeah.
I think so.
A lot of healing, so it effectively makes it feel like the hit points that you start with are ultimately quite a bit more than they could be.
Yeah.
If you use and focus on using some of those abilities.
Right,
because
and leveling up some of those abilities.
Some of the the other side of him is to channel that rage into some powerful attacks.
Right, he doesn't have any defense really. He doesn't have any way to naturally defend like some characters have. And he doesn't have a lot on the form of tokens. Like he is a very ability focused, but his tokens are very powerful. And they introduce a cool new mechanic, which is discarding cards. So Wolverine's rage is built through taking different actions, different abilities, playing different cards. You'll take those rage tokens and you'll put them on his player board just like normal, but he can spend those rage tokens to do more damage in combat. There's a price to pay. You have to discard one of your cards from your hand. However, Wolverine has a bunch of cards that when discarded for rage also do something like heal him even more or replenish some of his rage tokens. This one, Astonishing Recovery, might be my favorite of Wolverine's cards. I really like this, but it lets him heal when he uses rage. Some of them increase the damage when he uses rage. Some of them give you your rage tokens back. So gaining and spending those rage tokens is kind of the flow of Wolverine.
Yeah, and it's interesting because those cards really don't do anything else other than being discarded with the rage.
They power his rage.
They power that rage. So it's a really interesting dynamic because you can also spend 3 of those rage tokens to draw a card.
Yeah, you can.
So
I don't want to have to do that.
No,
but you can.
But it might get you one of those cards that you need if you can't channel it into damage.
Well, or if you've got nothing to discard for the rage, they just sit there. You still have at least some function. And those rage cards that you have, they can still be sold like normal. They can, whatever. But they're better. You really want to save them. You really want to use them. Like, if you could get rid of all 3 of your rage on one attack, that's 9 extra damage. That's pretty huge.
And he has an alpha token as well.
Oh, he does have an alpha token. It's harder to get off. I think there's only a couple abilities that you can, and you need 6s to kind of trigger that. But he can give an alpha token to the other player and roll off against them. And if you win the roll off, they skip their next income phase.
Yeah.
That can be really huge too, especially if your opponent is low on cards or low on CP. You can tactically use that alpha ability to block them from regenerating. So that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, so the other character is Psylocke. But Psylocke has quite a bit more going on. She's a slightly more complex character to play based on their own scale. But I'm going to save the best for last and work my way up. She's got an infiltration token, and she's able to effectively, thematically, go into their mind and control them a little bit. There's some things, some of her cards trigger off the infiltration. She's also got agility, and agility is probably one of my favorite tokens that I used of hers. It's probably one of Ryan's least favorites when I was controlling her. She's able to discard agility to have incoming damage, which is pretty amazing. Now, it's a risk because you're rolling a die to see if it happens, but it's a 1 through a 3 that triggers it. So it's a 50-50 that you're going to be able to have incoming damage.
It can be. You'll notice something about Psylocke too is all of her tokens, she has cards in her deck that interact directly with her tokens a lot more than we see with some other heroes. And so if you have the card, you can just discard the agility to take half damage. You don't even there's no risk involved.
Yeah,
so,
she's what I would call, she's more of a control character, I feel, or more of a controlled character than we've seen in Dice Throne. Paralyze is going to do something interesting. As you might guess, it goes on to another character, and they can't gain or inflict status effects. Now, the really cool thing, though, is she has this card called Forced. Force says, if an opponent inflicted with Paralyze would have gained a positive status effect as a result of activating an offensive ability, you gain it instead. Yeah. So not only are you keeping them from gaining it, But with this card, you're getting it, and it's only 1 CP card.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of unique cards in all these decks anyway. But hers directly interact with the tokens, like I said earlier, in a way that like Wolverine's don't. I mean, you have the discard for the rage, but there's not a lot of cards that let me just like use rage for other things like she has in her deck.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the best one of all is the Manifest die. She gets a 6th die of a slightly different color. It's purple. You're going to roll this in your first roll every roll phase, and then you're going to set it on her board right here. Now, you can use this die in a couple different ways. One, after you roll, you can use it to basically just swap in for one of the die that you rolled. So if it's basically a 6th die in that respect.
Really, yeah, it's really nice.
Or if you don't do that, whatever your ultimate offensive ability is, if it has attack and does damage, you're going to add half, rounded up, of the value of that die to the damage. So she's capable of doing quite a bit of damage just by having a high value die down here.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that gives you, you're basically making now your best hand out of 6.
Yeah, plus it's going to give you a feel for a dice rolling game like this of a little bit, like I said, more control, a little bit of mitigation. It's a really interesting mechanic, probably one of the cooler ones that we've seen so far.
Yeah, it is, but we haven't even seen all of them.
Yeah, we haven't seen all of them. Surely there will be more characters, and hopefully we'll have more content and more information on those. But for now, if you have any more questions about Psylocke and Wolverine, please make them in the comments below. We'll be happy to get down there and answer everything that we are allowed to or can, which should be just about everything. We have all the information we can have about these two characters. So let us know in the comments below. And until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.